This is Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. It's powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. To get an extended 30-day trial, visit shopify.com/masters. Hey entrepreneurs, my name is Felix and I'm the host of the Shopify Masters podcast. Each week we put out podcast interviews with successful e-commerce entrepreneurs or experts to give you inspiration, motivation, and actionable tips to increase your traffic and sales so your store can generate the sales you need to live the life you want. On the last episode, Andrew Udarian from ecommercefuel.com reveals how he would launch a successful Amazon business in 2017. On today's episode, you'll learn from an entrepreneur that launched a product on Tumblr that resulted in $200,000 of sales in just 3 weeks. In this episode, you'll learn the difference between working with influencers on Tumblr versus Instagram, why you should keep your copy brief when running retargeting ads, and how to come up with content marketing ideas around your product. Today, I'm joined by Jason Wong from the memebible.com. That's TheMemeBible.com. The Meme Bible is 16 pages of the most iconic memes in forms of coloring books, connect the dots, word search, crossword puzzle, and maze, and was started in 2014 and based out of Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Jason.
Hello. Hi, Felix.
Hey, so tell us a bit more about the Meme Bible. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, before doing e-commerce, I was an influencer on social media. So I, started running these large pages to entertain people with internet memes. And I realized that there's, a different ways to present these kind of internet memes and another way to, remember them. Instead of putting them digitally on different platforms, I can turn them into a children's activity book for people to kind of, give us a gag gift or to enjoy and to remember 2016 in a special way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you obviously have experience or exposure in this this culture, this meme culture. I'm not sure what you would call it. And you knew that there were these iconic images like you're talking about. There's these iconic memes, but you chose to turn it into, like you're saying, an activity book. I think a lot of times when people have these iconic images from whatever industry, whatever niche they're focused on, their immediate thought is to go to create t-shirts or mugs or things like that, things that are kind of merchandise that's easy to produce. But you went right for an activity book. Like, what made you decide to go that direction rather than, I guess, the more typical approach of getting merchandise made?
Right. That's a really good question because, the easy thought is to, why not just print everything on a t-shirt and sell them for a higher price point? It's popular right now, just get, wearables. But I was actually inspired by the adult swear word coloring book. I'm not sure if you heard of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's when an artist about a year ago, this time, created like a few pages of coloring activities using swear words, and it's for adults, and you can color in the flowers surrounding the words and all that stuff. And the artist made about, I would say, like $1 million or more from that deal. And obviously the money is good, but the idea is special because no one really thought of turning something so common, swear words, into a coloring book, which is commonly perceived as a children's activity. So what if we do something that adults and teenagers enjoy, and integrate something that people do in their childhood into that and put them together to create something that's memorable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense that you wanted to create this new type of product and not just slap two products together, the memes, and then slap it onto a wearable, like you're saying. So this meme Bible that you're creating, this activity book that you were creating, were you able to validate it before you made much progress into it? Like, how did you know that this was the right approach? Again, making it a better approach than just to create wearables and merchandise.
Well, for a lot of things, even for my previous businesses, a lot of them is just trial and error. And, honestly, I created this book in 2 weeks. Every the designs, the publishing, the printing was done in a very short span of time. So there's really no time for me to do market research, audience research, analysis, or anything. It's just really print, sell. If it sells well, reinvest that money and print more. So in the beginning, I would say around November 27th of this year, that's when I started printing the books. I printed 250 copies of it. And that costed me about $450. And, at that time, it was kind of most of the money that I had. It was just a few $100s. So I put all of that into the book, printing it, not knowing whether it'll be a success or not. I kind of calculated how much I would need to sell to break even, but I didn't expect it to sell so much. So all I had was 250 copies. I would be happy if it all sold out, and it just went beyond that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you did this in 2 weeks, which I think sometimes it takes people even longer to do market research. It takes them even longer than 2 weeks to do market research. I think your approach makes a lot of sense, especially if it doesn't require that much capital to invest. $400, $450 is not that much in the kind of grand scheme of things. If you can spend that kind of money, get a product out there, and then validate it with an actual product, I think that's totally the right approach, rather than spending the 2 weeks kind of going academically about it and trying to do the research. So this 2 weeks, though, I think that's a very quick turnaround time. It sounds like you think the same thing, that it was done very quickly. What did you actually do in those 2 weeks? Like, how were you able to come up with the idea, design it, get it manufactured so quickly?
Right. So what I did was, in the beginning, doing a lot of research onto what was trending throughout the year, because the idea of this book is to memorize 2016 by using the things that were iconic. So I had to, look back through different sources like people's blogs, Reddit, the meme archives, different Twitter accounts, to see what was most popular, how well were they received, and what are people's opinion about it. Because some memes just aren't meant to be used again, and some are so popular that I believe people would like to see them in different forms. So for most of the time, I just did a lot of market research into what was popular and how to integrate that into an activity. Because what I realized that the memes in 2016 are drastically different than the memes in 2012. And I'll give an example on that. 4 or 5 years ago, the memes are kind of like cartoonish, like the Derp or the Rage comics. Mm-hmm. So those are more, drawing based. Those are, comics, and, you can easily replicate them and turn them into coloring books or children's activity. But a lot of things this year and, even last year are kind of picture or video based, like Damn Daniel, for example, mm-hmm. or last year, Alex from Target. These are video formats. How do we turn them into a children's activity book? So that was some of the challenges that I faced. It's just, how do we integrate them into an activity that's fun, that's, memorable, and still retains the same idea without kind of shifting away from its original meanings.
In those 2 weeks, you had all of these challenges, all these design challenges to take what these iconic images, these videos, and turn them into paper form that could be used for an activity like coloring or connect the dots. So was this what you're doing for those 2 weeks, that design, that kind of brainstorming of how to implement this, or were you getting it, or was it actually being produced in those 2 weeks as well? Like, when did you actually get this into the hands of, the people that were going to produce the books for you?
Right. So one of the biggest problem I had was not anticipating the demand I would, receive. So around late November, I started printing 250 books, and they would come in a few days. I sold out those 250 books within 6 hours of putting them on my site through various marketing tactics. So after that, I started doing pre-sales, and people didn't receive those pre-sale items until a week later. We do try to time everything so that people will receive it before Christmas. So that was another challenge as well, rush order everything, getting things from point A to point B. And in the beginning, I thought of fulfilling everything on my own, hiring a couple of friends, do it in the garage. But then we sold over 10,000 books. And at that point, I realized that I need to reroute everything to a professional fulfillment center, because there's really no way I can do everything and get everyone's product in their hands before Christmas.
Yeah, so this sounds like it still all happened in 1 month, this month of November, where you designed all this, you got it made, you sold out of it pretty much all in a span of 30 days. So where did you get these books printed? Was it just like I'm not even sure how, if someone wanted to take this similar approach and create books or create activity books, are there manufacturers or other producers that focus specifically on designing products like this?
Yeah, so another problem was that I never had any experience of printing physical media. So finding someone that's reputable was important. So I depending a lot on online reviews. So I looked at a printer that's near my place because that will ensure the fastest delivery time. And I found a printer in Northern California, in San Francisco area, that was able to print each unit at a reasonable price and then get them to me in the fastest time possible, which is like 2-day production time. So that was going well until I have to ship my fulfillment center to Texas. And at that time, I had to find another printing center that was close to the fulfillment center so we can get it, from the printer to the fulfillment center as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. So, there wasn't really any special tactics that I used to find these sources. It's just Googling and then depending on other people's experience and then going with that.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so you had these initial 250 printed, and they sold out very quickly. What were you doing to market? Was it just the social media platforms that you were an influencer on, or what were you doing to sell out so quickly?
Yeah, so that was a large part of it actually. So just a little background on myself. I'm a influencer on Tumblr, and I have about over 1.4 million followers. So being able to market that and having that seen by my audiences, getting picked up really easily because it's a viral element in itself because all the memes are, viral already, right? So people started picking it up and be like, oh, I want this for Christmas. I want this. And it just went from there. It went viral after you show it from the beginning.
Okay, yeah. So I think then the next question is like the act of becoming an influencer on these platforms. I think there's an approach that a lot of people find themselves in where they have built a following, maybe not nearly as successful as yours. Over 1 million followers is amazing, but maybe not as successful as yours, but still enough that they might be able to launch some kind of business off of it. So now Tumblr specifically, I've heard of people being influencers or people working with influencers on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, all of those channels, but never anybody on Tumblr. So what has your experience been like? What have you found different about being an influencer on Tumblr versus the other platforms?
Right. So Tumblr is such a unique place, and it's a hard place to be an influencer on. So a lot of people flock to Twitter or Instagram because it's so easy to grow their accounts. But I feel like there's such a large disconnectivity between the influencer and their audience when they're on Twitter and Instagram, because essentially all they really are doing is posting contents that are copied from other people and then pushing it to their audiences. Whereas on Tumblr, I feel like there's a bigger connection between the influencer and the audience. So there's more opportunities to have conversations with one another. Sometimes we host meetups. It's kind of like YouTube, but more on like a text-based format. So I feel like by having that closer, interpersonal relationship with your audience, by, making them like friends rather than an audience, we are able to push our products better and more efficiently because there's more trust in us as an influencer to endorse these products. So I think that's the biggest distinction between being an influencer on Tumblr and being an influencer on other platforms. Now, another thing that really separates us is the promotion methods. So a lot of memes do originate from Tumblr or made popular by Tumblr. Mm-hmm. So the people on there are already familiar with this kind of content. Like they know what is going on in the books. They just want to buy something that's memorable and to remember these memes. So having that right audience was very important. And, I believe that a lot of people that listen to this podcast won't be an influencer themselves. And that's totally okay because you really just need to find an influencer to connect with. Like, if I didn't have any audience on my personal accounts, I can still achieve a similar effect because I reached out to the right people that can connect me to the right people. So it's really about the networking effect and knowing the right people. You don't need 1 million followers on yourself to do, what I do. You just need to find the right market and then find the right marketing tactics to go about it.
Yeah, I like that you don't want people to essentially spend all this time that I'm sure you spend a lot of time to build your following on Tumblr. You don't have to focus on that when you are a business owner. You can just find existing influencers and work with them. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us about this. Like, what is it like, from your perspective, of course? And let me ask you this first. Have you worked with other Tumblr influencers to help promote your products?
Absolutely. So I would say that in the beginning, I used my own blog to promote the product. But after 2 or 3 days, I shifted away from my own personal promotion and I pushed it all to other influencers. So I reached out to all the big accounts on Tumblr and I start, working with them to push the products out. And essentially, I kind of just like leave the promotion off my own blog because I was spending more time developing more content and developing more connections with people to work with. So by the end of 6th or 7th day, most of Tumblr's influencers had my content posted on the blog in one way or another. So we did a very large campaign on Tumblr.
Mm-hmm. And what is your perspective been with from being on both sides as an influencer and as someone that works with influencers? How does the deals usually work with influencers on Tumblr? If someone wanted to tap into the demographic that is on Tumblr, and how do they find influencers and how do they approach them?
Well, there's several services that connect you with them, but most of these services exclude Tumblr. Particularly because it's really hard to get into, so not many influencers are able to use it. I was able to have access to these influencers myself because I am in their circle, so I'm able to have better access to them. But the best advice for people outside of this circle is to contact these people one-on-one, and they connect you with their friends. They connect with you with their circle. There's a special relationship between influencers and brands, and I think a lot of people need to remember that they depend on you and you depend on them. So there's a mutual beneficial relationship. There's really no trouble reaching out and just, chatting up a deal, pay per post or pay per commission. These are things that a lot of people work with and they're happy to work with your budget if necessary.
Mm-hmm. And how do you determine if an influencer is the right connection for your brand? Like, what are you looking at to determine that they will essentially have the right demographic of followers?
So that's a really good question because it's really hard to determine. There's really no single indicator of whether or not they're suitable for you. There's no scale. There's no score. Mm-hmm. But it's really about observing the influencer account and seeing the type of contents that they reach out to and what kind of audience those content attracts. So I'll just give a very clear example. Let's say for Twitter, if you're pushing like a hair product, you're aiming for, I would say, a largely female audience. With that in mind, you find out the age group of the audience that you want to target, perhaps some hobby, your interests. And then you go on Twitter and you look for accounts that are posting contents that relate to it. So using the same example audience, teenage girls likes hair product. Maybe we can look for a Twitter account that posts about teenage girl quotes or teenage girl posts, like things that are relatable to these teenage girls, because you will know that their audience is mostly females and probably in the teenage years. So that's one way to go about it. Another way that I've been experimenting was with Facebook advertisements, which has been very successful. It's my first time working with Facebook advertisements, but it's very accurate because all you really need to have is the initial user data, and then it goes from there. So I'll elaborate on that if you want.
Yeah. Let's go into that in a second. I want to right after this, but I want to close out on this Tumblr discussion real quick. So, if someone wants to work with an influencer on Tumblr, you're saying that there are different kind of deals that you can craft as either pay per post or some kind of commission. Can you give an idea of what kind of budget you would need before it even makes sense? Can you start with $100, or do you need to have more than that to actually have any success working with influencers on Tumblr?
Right. So budgets a large problem for a lot of people because for Twitter and Instagram and even Facebook, they charge a lot of money for the views, for the traffics, user impressions, CP conversion. But on Tumblr, it's special because the cost of promoting there is so low. A lot of people charge by post, so a few dollars per share. Sometimes they'll create a post for you for a few dollars, and then or you can go with the commission way, cut them a 25-30% deal, and then they'll be happy to go about it. So if you're on a budget and you want to reach a large audience, I think Tumblr is the best place to do it. if you have the right strategies.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about Facebook now, because like you're saying, it's been very effective for you. And what you're saying earlier was that all you need is the initial, I guess, user data from the. I'm assuming you're talking about the traffic that's already coming to your site, and then you build your ads based on the, I guess, the user data. Are you like creating lookalike audiences? Like, what are you doing exactly on Facebook?
Right. So in the first few days, I didn't touch Facebook ads. What I did was that I installed a Facebook pixel for the advertisement manager. And then, I installed Google Analytics. What I really heavily focused on was funneling enough traffic through social media sites like Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So at my first few days, I was getting about 15 to 20,000 visitors a day. By the fourth day, I had about 50,000 visitors, and that's 50,000 worth of user data. Using that data, I start doing retargeting ads on advertisements. So people that have visited my site will now have a cookie on their browser, and Facebook will know who these users are. So whenever they go on Facebook to check their newsfeed, to talk to their friends, they will start seeing advertisements for the Meme Bible offering a discount code. And that has been very successful for us. I think we did about 7,000 just in sales from that in a few days.
That's awesome. So what you're saying is you place a Facebook pixel on your site and drive the initial traffic through social media, I'm assuming through your accounts and through working with influencers. And then from there, you can retarget all of the audience that was already coming to your site before, again, with ads. And they're obviously going to be much more likely to convert because they're already familiar with the products, with the brand. So did you segment out the audience anymore? Like, were you trying to retarget people that were looking at the homepage, the product page, add to cart, like all of it, or were you more focused on a specific, I guess, part of the funnel?
So I had different ad segments. So I have the retargeting based on visitors, and then other than that, I had advertisements for recovery cart that offer a bigger discounts because people that have added the product to the cart are very warm traffic, and they're very more likely to go back and buy again if they're offered a better incentive to do so. So I've been working with both sides of that for now.
Okay, so you're for any cart abandoners, you are advertising to them again on Facebook, and in order to push them towards the conversion, you are offering a discount code?
Yeah, so my discount code for these cart recovery was 15%, and I sent out an email 18 hours after cart abandonment. I've been playing around with different hours. So, 1 hour, 18 hours, 24 hours. And I found 18 hours to be the most effective for some reason. And another thing that I learned from retargeting ads is that you need to keep the description as brief as possible. There's really no need to redescribe your product. No need to write a paragraph about it. It's just, here's a discount code. You can use it if you come back. Because these are visitors that went through your website already. They don't need to get you to make the sales to them again. They just need an incentive to come back. And you just really need to offer them that.
That makes sense. So keeping it as brief as possible. Do you find that there was harm in, I guess, elaborating too much in the copy
yes.
for these? Okay.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, I made the mistake of making a very detailed retargeting advertisement. So I had what I did was I copy my product description and I put it into the ad again. And then at the bottom, I put the 15% discount code. So most people, even myself, we don't read through that lengthy text. We just want to see a discount code. But because there's a lengthy text, sometimes we are deterred from even reading it in the first place. So the conversions for that kind of advertisement was very low. And I was struggling, and I asked around, consulted a few friends in e-commerce, and they recommended the shorter text version, which yield very good results.
I see. So you are like going even as far as making the headline mention the discount, or maybe even mention the discount code?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just you need to give them an incentive to come back. And most people don't care about reading your product description again. They just want to know, why should I come back? Give me a reason to.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. So focus on the reason, focus on why they should go back and check out the product, and not spend that time describing the product to them because they probably already read it or already familiar enough with it, and they just need to know the reason. I like that. I like that kind of line of thinking. So you were talking about cart abandonment earlier. I think I might have misheard you. Were you saying that you are sending out cart abandonment emails, or are you actually retargeting them on Facebook, retargeting cart banners on Facebook, or are you doing both?
Just email. I don't think it's good to be repetitive because it seems like a spam tactic. So for visitors that visit our site, the main page, not any specific page, we send out a retargeting ad on Facebook. For cart abandonment customers, we send out a cart recovery email after 18 hours. And, I've been seeing very good results for both of them.
Mm-hmm. So in these cart abandonment emails, are you following the same philosophy where you're keeping it super short? Like, what are you saying in these emails?
Yeah, I think my overall email is 2 lines in total. It's just, the first line was come back and enjoy this discount code. The second line was just the discount code. And yeah, the conversion rate from these kind of emails were very high. I don't know the numbers exactly because I'm not on the page right now, but from what I've been observing these past few days, they have a high success rate.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So let's talk about content marketing. So I think that was an approach that worked very well for you. I believe, I'm not sure if it was your email or I read it somewhere about you that you spent, you sold $20,000 worth of products in just 5 days with some basic content marketing. And one interesting thing that you said after that was that content marketing for you consists of 50% of taking advantage of natural human behavior and 50% thinking of ways to not promote your product. Can you explain a little more about this? Like, what is that breakdown, I guess, mean to you?
Right. So content marketing is essentially promoting your product through its ideas, but not the content itself. So you want to promote like an ideology between revolving your product. So people that see, product marketing sales, they don't like it. They feel like they're being taken advantage of, and they just kind of, show these ads away from their eyes. But once we promote an idea and it gets their interest, they're more inclined to, spend more time into learning more about it. And once you get the idea into them and get the interest in them, they are more inclined to, make a purchase or even share it with their friends. So an example, I guess you're referring to the articles in Forbes.
Yeah, I believe there was a Forbes article.
Yeah, so that was about my time selling on Trendyco, which is during the election season. I sold a shirt with Bernie Sanders holding a cat on the t-shirt. And it was like a Photoshop photo of him holding a cat in front of a galaxy background. And it was a pretty funny picture, and I found the picture off Reddit. What I did was that, I contacted an artist to work together to use to use his image, and then cut him a commission deal out of all the sales. And it did really well. So what I did was that I didn't really push the product. I just started, sharing his, Bernie Sanders as a person, his ideas, and then, just throwing the product in there in a mix. And people see, they like the idea, they like the joke. Because it's a funny shirt. Once they like the joke, they're more inclined to check out the page, and bam, you get several cart add to cart people. Some might purchase, some might not. You send them a cart abandonment email, and some might even come back from that.
Makes sense. So was this also promoted through your own social channels, or how did you spread these ideas?
So this was entirely on Tumblr because I believe it's the only platform where I can effectively use multimedia to promote an idea. So Twitter is very limited because it's 140 characters. Instagram, there's no native link in the caption, so you can't really link anything. And even in the caption, it's very limited because the space is very restricting. So Tumblr was an ideal platform for me to use to spread these kind of ideas, to spread jokes about the presidential candidate, and to spread his ideas and to throw the shirt and kind of sandwich it together.
I see what you're saying. So basically what you're getting at is that you don't want to spend your time talking about your product. You want to talk about the idea, maybe the lifestyle that surrounds your product, or talk about content that would attract the target customers to your content, and then eventually lead them into your site, into your store. So now, if someone wants to take this approach, which I think is an awesome approach, because you don't have to pay for ads in this case, right? You're putting on content, and hopefully maybe you're working with some influencers, maybe you're paying that way, but it's much more of I guess, indirect sell, and I think that rubs people a better way than a more hard sell. So if you have a product, how do you back out into the idea, right? Because you have this T-shirt idea, and maybe yours is a little bit easier because it's Bernie Sanders, and obviously he has a lot of ideas, and he has this. There's this kind of revolution, I guess, around him during that time. But if you have a more boring, I guess, product, I can't think of a good one right now. But if you have a more boring product, how do you step back and try to discover the ideas that surround that product so that you can create content based on those ideas?
Right. So I'll give you an example. I think it's best to, just talk on example. And one of the products that I've been working with in the past few months was a phone case. So phone case is very straightforward. A lot of people do it. It's cheap to manufacture. And I believe a lot of shop owners do phone cases because it's a high margin product. So how do we, market a phone case? It's just a boring phone case. I guess for my example specifically, my case has a functionality, which is it sticks on Windows. It sticks on any flat surface. It's called an anti-gravity phone case, and it has a nano-suction material in the back of the case where you can stick it on windows, you can stick it on mirrors. It's great for people doing makeup, people cooking that wants to stick their phone on a cabinet. So these are the great functions, and these are the functions that I believe draws people's interest. So before we talk about the phone case in itself, selling the phone case here, buy it for $9.99, we talk about what it can do. We talk about, what it's made out of, what it's capable of doing, and then we feature the product in the end. But by the time people see the product, they kind of know what the product is already, because they know what's capable of, what it's made out of. And I guess people that are interested by that are more inclined to look at the product at the end.
Okay, it makes sense. So you're focusing a lot on the benefits, like how can your life be improved by having this product, but not actually talking about it until they're bought into the idea, bought into how their lives can improve from there. That makes a lot of sense. So I think another this wasn't your quote necessarily, but this was something that I believe in a Forbes article too, where it says that you explained that your method of converting content into results, I'm assuming that means sales, through a story about how pyramid scheme organizations recruit. So can you say more about this? Like, how do you relate, I guess, a pyramid scheme to content and conversions?
Right. So it was actually, it was my quote. It's from an experience of mine. So last year when I first moved to LA, I was standing in line at Costco, and then this girl in front of me, she's fairly attractive, and then she started making a conversation with me. She's like, "Hey, what are you here for? What do you do? Where do you go to school? My name is Anne. I do this. I'm going to meet my mentor later." And that's where it hit me. I like the word mentor because I've always been wanting to learn more things from someone who's an expert at a specific field. And she started talking about her mentor. She's talking about the things that he taught her, everything, all the great benefits, the trips that they take to these conferences. And I was really interested at that point. And after 5 minutes or so, I got her number. We were supposed to meet for dinner in a few days. And the dinner happened at a house. She brought me in, and then she started talking about this book. It's a book by I believe his name is Robert, and it's called like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm not sure if you heard about that book before. Yeah. But she presented me this book, and she was like, "I want you to read this book and kind of absorb the ideas behind it." And at this point, there's really like no. She didn't mention any business. She didn't mention any marketing agency. She just like started giving me these ideas. The ideas of starting your own business, the ideas of doing small business and taking your own future into your own hands, and how to make passive income, giving me all these fantastic ideas that I've always wanted to learn and want to achieve. And then after I finished the book, she was giving me this package kit, like notebooks, fancy suitcase. And then she drew me into this house 2 weeks later, and we were all seated in the living room. And this guy comes out, introduce himself as a founder or like a partner at this agency. And it sounded exactly like a pyramid scheme. In hindsight, it is a pyramid scheme. But then he started talking about the benefits of joining these organizations, the discounts, and the money that you can make by referring your friends and family. And at that point, I realized, well, shit, I'm in a pyramid scheme. But I was 3 weeks into this program already, and I did not know that it was a pyramid scheme at all.
Wow.
So it was so effective because he was selling me the great ideas that I've always wanted to have. He started talking about the benefits. He talked about the lifestyle that I would have, being retired at 32 years old, using himself as an example. And I was like, wait, I want to be retired at 32. I want to have passive income. I want to make $6,000 a month doing, something that I love. And he was selling me all these ideas that I wanted, and I would believe everyone else in the room wanted, that I did not know that I was in a pyramid scheme. And at the end of the day, they want us to sign up for a membership for like $100-something. I don't know what agency it was, because it was so sophisticated that they did not mention what multi-level marketing agency it was. It was just like they were so focused on pressing the idea that they did not tell me what organization we were working for. So usually, like, most people are upfront. They're like, oh, you're working for MCA, you're working for Herbalife, you're working for all these organizations. But at the end of the day, I still don't know who I was working for. I was just so interested in joining that I did not care, or I did not hear anything at all. It translates to content marketing itself. It's just you sell the idea, you get people interested, and they will not think that is an advertisement.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of what worked, I guess, well in your example of being recruited into this pyramid scheme without knowing was that they were able to keep your attention for almost a month. They were able to get you to keep coming back and listening, to be essentially indoctrinated over that time. Now, how can you replicate that, I guess, online? Like, how do you keep people's attention? How do you keep them returning back to hear the message? I don't want people to leave this trying to build a pyramid scheme of their own, but like, there's some, benefit, right, to knowing how to keep people's attention so you can keep hitting them with your message. What works? Well, what works in your case, or what kind of tips do you have to keep people's attention so you can get your message to them?
Right. So one way is to keep active social media accounts and keep consistent content going up. So if you're selling I would say something in like the health supplement industry, you will start posting a lot of like before and after pictures, right? Some customer testimonials. These are all content and ideas that you want to instill in your audience's mind. Is that, oh, this product works. Here's the pictures. Here's the blog post about the benefits of it. Is to start building a customer base and then feeding them more contents rather than feeding them more advertisements. Because contents are easy to keep people reading. Advertisements kind of just like steers people away at first sight. So it's to build an active social media account and have consistent contents posted onto it that kind of relates back to the idea of the product, the benefits of it, why people should be more interested in it. Rather than, every single post being buy this for 15% off, get 30% off if you buy a second item. Like, these are the things that you put in once in a while. But what you should really focus on is having consistent content and having a consistent theme revolving around your product that gets people interested.
Mm-hmm. So let's take Instagram, for example. I think that's probably a platform that most people are familiar with. Now you're saying, let's say on your feed, if you're selling some kind of weight loss product, to post a lot of success stories, post a lot of content about how to lose weight, basically inspirational, motivational content. Now, at any point, do you ever include in your feed your product or any mention of the product, or do you wait for them to kind of go deeper into your funnel by like joining your mailing list or something before you mention the product, right? Because there's a gigantic feed of images, motivational quotes, before and after pictures, and then a picture of 10% off. You come check out the site. Do you believe in taking that approach, or like how would you set that up?
I believe that the deeper that you get someone into your funnel, the easier it is to retain them as a customer. If you do everything so early on and you rush it, they're not really what we call a warm traffic. They're still kind of cold. They're still kind of on the fence about doing this and that. So you kind of want to get them like to be more of like a customer base, loyal customer base, and start feeding them ideas and then selling them from there. This will take a lot of time to build, especially for like if you're building a brand rather than building like a product. Because building a brand is all about building brand recognition and establishing your credibility as a brand. Whereas a product, you just kind of push a product and then dump it in a couple of weeks. So there's different approaches depending on what's your objective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. The reason I'm asking is because if someone follows your Instagram from the very beginning, then it'll definitely make sense to them that you're posting 10 content marketing posts, and then the 11th one is essentially a sell, maybe it's a soft sell or something to get them to check out the site. Now, if someone dropped in and not at the very beginning, dropped in on the 8th post, then it seems like the pitch came on a lot sooner. So how do you manage that kind of, difference in timing of people dropping into your content marketing feed, whether it be on Tumblr or whether it be on Instagram or any other platform that has this feed?
So there's different approaches to this. What I think is important is to keep your main account to be more content centric, and then using your influencer connections to make the mixture of posts, because people that follow the influencer post goes to your account and they don't see the ads, they see the contents and they're more inclined to follow it. So you can use the influencer connections and using their posts to have a mixture of advertisement and content posts.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're kind of not assuming, but you are. The idea is that the influencers that you are working with, they're also probably being followed by your audience, so that they're focused on your main account. They see all the content, they see all the value you're providing, but you're not doing the selling. You're working with the influencers that your current audience probably is also following. That they're doing the selling on your behalf. I like that approach.
Yeah, so it keeps your account clean, like pure, and it doesn't make yourself seem like very sales pushy. But it doesn't matter if the influencer is the ones that are sales and pushy, because, well, one, you're not really connected to them, and two, they delete the post shortly after. So what you really need to do is like keep your account at a clean slate, and then let the influencers do like what we say, the dirty work.
Right, that makes sense. And it also, when someone else sells on your behalf, it kind of takes away some of the assumed bias that people will automatically feel if it's the own brand itself that's pushing the product. If someone else is pushing it, even if it's a paid influencer, I think people are much more likely to trust think that it's less biased, even though you're essentially paying them or working with them in some regard anyway.
Absolutely.
So now when it comes to actually creating the content for your social media or whatever else you're creating, what's your process like? How do you determine what kind of content you should be creating, and do you produce all the content yourself? So
sometimes I do my own content development, and sometimes I outsource this to other people to write blog posts. Blog posts increases your site's SEO, and it gives the customers a better understanding of what your product or your brand is about. So that's one thing that I guess you can outsource to someone else. Another thing about social media posts is that you really need to keep a consistent quality. So a lot of work is really keeping the consistency. If you change photographers, for example, the quality and the tone may change. So there's a lot of challenges about creating good content. And most of the time I just take it upon myself to do it, and I start by studying the audience. I look at the product that I'm trying to promote, who is trying to attract, what is something that they are interested in right now, and how can I integrate their current interest into my product. So how can I relate those two together to make it more appealing?
So for the main kind of marketing channels for you, in your case, it would be Tumblr. You want to be the one that's curating and creating the content because you can keep the messaging, the tone, the voice the same. If you start building a team around it and spreading it to the work to other people, then you can run into a situation where there's a difference in tone and you feel like audiences can pick up on that.
Absolutely.
And now when it comes to outsourcing, though, especially for maybe your secondary channels, like your blog, for example, where do you typically go to find outsourced or I guess freelancers? A
good freelance website that I've been using so far is Upwork. And then another one is Fiverr. Fiverr is the one that you can hire people for $5, and it's very simple gigs. Quality, I wouldn't say is excellent, but I guess the job done if you can proofread it at the end. That's something for people on a budget, which I really was a few months ago. So couldn't really afford professional freelancers for like $40 an hour. So I went to Fiverr. There's different ways. Sometimes you just have to write it yourself and get your friends to proofread it. That's the cheapest option.
Cool. Now, when you are working with influencers to promote your product, whether it be on Tumblr or Instagram, do you have any tips on how you can set up a deal or, I guess, talk about the promotion with these influencers that will ensure that you get what you need to turn a positive ROI on investing in these influencers?
Yeah, so for a good influencer deal, it comes with weeks of planning ahead, what kind of pictures to use. You have to understand their audience because the influencers themselves understand their audience better than anyone else. So you really need to have consistent communication with them, understand what's been working well so far, check their previous collaborations, what kind of text, what kind of pictures works well, and then start developing contents based on there. And I guess depending on which social media talent agency that you work with, some of them will do most of the dirty work for you.
Any recommendations on social media talent agencies that you know of that would, I guess, be a good start for anyone that's trying out this work with influencers for the first time?
Right. So one that I personally recommend for Twitter and Instagram is a thing called Flipmast, flipmast.com. And so they are very well connected to Instagram and Twitter influencers, and they can, start developing contents and distributing these contents for you. Another thing that I've always also used in the past is famebit.com, which focus more on Instagram and YouTube. So I guess if you have a product that you think a product review would do well on, you can collaborate with YouTube accounts on Famebit, and then you pay from there. The influencer doesn't get paid until they deliver the product. You can review everything. So it's a very sophisticated process to ensure that no one really gets screwed over.
Mm-hmm. And does this make sense to use Flipmast or Famebit for people that are just starting out, or do you recommend that people try to go off on their own first? At what stage in a business before you should focus on going with these talent agencies?
I think Flipmast is good if you have a larger value and a budget, because these companies are working with big brand names and they are handling large volumes. So it's best if you have a good budget for these. I would say $1,000 to $5,000. In the beginning, if you're starting out with a small budget, which I believe most small business owners are, I would just reach out to these influencers by yourself. But by doing so, you're also putting yourself at a risk of being scammed or having low quality contents delivered. So I would say it's safe. It's a good investment to work with agencies such as Famebit or Flipmast.
Awesome. So with all these marketing channels that you focus on, working with influencers, having your own platform, I think it was mentioned earlier or maybe off the podcast that you only spent $400 on this coloring book, this meme Bible, and you made $100,000 in just 7 days. Can you give us an idea of how successful the business is today? I guess this is probably your second month now in business.
We're actually third week in business. We haven't been. We began on December 3rd, so it's been about 20 days.
Wow.
We're close to $200,000 right now.
That's amazing. So where do you want to see your businesses be in the next year? This time next year?
I believe there's a lot of room for updates because internet memes are constantly changing. But I don't want to make a series that's so frequent because it kind of loses its freshness. So I would say a couple series per year, like an end of the year deal or a mid-year deal, maybe a large collection, a history book, something like that, something that we can work with. But these new ideas I'm exploring and trying to see what works best right now.
Awesome. So thanks so much for your time, Jason. The memebible.com is the store that we talked about. You also have a few other businesses that you run. Can you let the audience know about where they can go to find out more about your other businesses?
Yeah, so one that I'm focusing heavily on right now is 50.co. So that company focuses on helping homeless animals by pledging a fifth of our proceeds to donate to Best Friends Animal Society, which is the largest no-kill shelter in the United States. So we work around, these shelters, and we produce apparels that features dogs, and we make apparels that are honoring different dogs in the shelter. And it's been a really fun journey so far to do something that I'm passionate about and also helps make a living.
Awesome. Again, thanks again so much for your time, Jason.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. To start your store today, visit shopify.com/masters to claim your extended 30-day free trial.